Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and I'm excited about today's episode. Our guest is Devon Harris, and she is the President, CEO of OberaConnect. And so, Devon, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, first of all, what is OberaConnect? We were talking before we started recording, and I had not heard of your organization. So, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so OberaConnect is an information technology company. We are kind of like your one-stop shop. We provide fiber, coax, cable, voice over IP, equipment, structured cabling, managed services for commercial and development. So we just do like retail spaces, think of like strip malls, housing developments, apartment buildings.
I gotcha.
We bring technology into that.
Okay, great. Well, I was looking at your show primer that Carrie sent me, and you went to college at the University of Mobile, and your major was leadership and cultural studies. Now, you had a minor in business, but leadership and cultural studies, going from that to telecom is interesting to me. So what did that path look like? How did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, so University of Mobile, of course, I think like most people, when you go to college, you're not really sure what you want to do. But I did always know eventually whatever path I took that I always wanted to work with my father or eventually run his company when he retired. But went to school for leadership and cultural studies and a minor in business. And whenever I got out of college, I started working for another telecom company, just as like a 1099 contracted employee in sales. I really loved it. I loved working with people. I love the relationship part of sales. And then gradually just stayed in telecom and got to where I am today.
Okay. So talk about your dad, because he started the original, I guess, what used to be the parent company. And then you came on board and split off another, I guess, division or whatever you want to call it that he was running. So what has that been like working with your dad, and what have you learned from him over the years?
Watching my dad over the years build Obera, which is a federal government contracting company, having an entrepreneur as a father and watching how he builds his business and interacts with people and the culture that he built for this company is quite amazing. And 5 years ago, when him and a guy named Bill Rainey started OberaConnect, he really wanted me to come and help him run OberaConnect and be a part of this. And at the time, it just wasn't the right time for me. And this year, May of this year, it became the right time. And while we're at work, he's John. When we're outside of work, he's Dad. And we work really well together. My brother also works for Obera, not OberaConnect, but for Obera. But I love being under his leadership, his mentorship, being able to watch him and learn from him every single day. And I strive to be like him, be a leader like him, and learn from him. So I feel very grateful, and I feel like it's priceless to be able to do that with my father. And we're building a company for our family, with our family, and for our staff's family. Yeah.
So you mentioned his leadership style. What is your dad's leadership style, and how does that compare to the way that you choose to lead?
So my dad's a Marine.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right, that says a lot.
Yeah, so you know what you're getting. Yeah. And communication and transparency is something that I really learned from him. Say what you mean what you say,
right?
And be transparent with your staff. I've worked in organizations in the past where communication and transparency were not there, and it does cause for a very toxic work environment. And I learned a lot of lessons and learned what I didn't want to do.
Right.
And so coming to OberaConnect and running OberaConnect with my father, communication is key across all boards. Our big thing at OberaConnect is we work on every project together at a team. We're very transparent. We're in a technology business, so we have lots of forms of communication to communicate with each other. Yeah. And I think that that's very important to let people know what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. An interesting dynamic. So your brother, he works for the other company, so you might not work with him closely all the time, but how was that dynamic? I mean, I've talked to a lot of father-daughter, father-son teams, but I mean, you add a sibling into that, I've got to think that's a whole other little wrinkle. So how's that go?
Yeah, so it's funny. So when I decided to come on board in May and be the co-owner of OberaConnect with my father, I actually called my brother beforehand, and I wanted to make sure that he was okay with it. Because he has worked for my dad for a very long time for Obera, and adding in another sibling into the mix, even though it's a separate company, we're all still doing this together. And he's great. We all work really great together. We talk all the time. But like I said, I think at work, and especially the foundation that my father has put into place, where at work we're working and outside of work we're family. So we try to keep it really separate.
That's great. So I know your dad obviously has got to be a mentor, but talk about other influences in your life, whether they be professional or personal, that have had an impact on where you are today and maybe your philosophy on leadership and how to run an organization.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple. Keith Jones, he's the CEO and owner of Prism Systems. Him and my dad are really great friends, and I really look up to him. I've known him and his wife for a very long time. And Keith has kind of mentored me through the years with my father. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like a second dad to me. It's what I always say. He's my dad that I hired. And he has helped me. And I really respect and look up to Keith and what he's done with Prism. And being able to watch him and learn under his mentorship has been amazing. And Rick Miller from The Hatch, I think most people know. I meet with Rick maybe twice a month for about an hour, and I sit with him and we talk about leadership and running a business and things like that. And being able to just have that time and learn from these men that have grown businesses and molded people into who they are today. I feel very fortunate to be a part of that.
Yeah, no doubt. Mentors are very important. So if a young person that is either in your industry or another is sitting there thinking, okay, that sounds great. I mean, I need a mentor, but where do I find a mentor? I mean, I know that Rick runs an incubator, and of course, Keith was your dad's friend. But how would you suggest folks go out and seek that person in their life if they don't have one right now?
Yeah, for me, I was looking for somebody to look up to and respect and liked what they did. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's all about finding that person that you look up to and that you want to be like.
Right. And we've had people too that say a mentor of theirs, and I'm thinking of a guy that was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, was like Steve Jobs or somebody like that. I mean, so you can find mentors in people that you don't have personal relationships through books and all those different things. Are you a big reader? Do you like to read?
Yeah, I am. The book I always go to is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I love that book. Okay. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's really good. I think
people have mentioned it before.
Reading books, listening to podcasts, and I also think about being in the business circle. It's all about who you surround yourself with. So people that you surround yourself, you usually are going to become like, act like, things like that. And I want to surround myself with people who want to do good, who want to do better, and make life good for other people as well. And my job, being in the role that I am, I have people that work under me, and it's my job to mentor them and lead them so then they can mentor and lead other people as well. Because we're all in this together. Yeah. And we just have to pass it down.
Yeah, great point. You mentioned the word culture earlier, and I'm a firm believer that every organization has a culture. So what do you strive to be the culture of your organization? Once you decide what you want that culture to be, how do you go about cultivating that?
Yeah. So for us, it's the fun atmosphere. We work, we have a good time. We know where that line is, work and play. Honesty, integrity, communicating, transparency, just having a fun atmosphere, but also a place like home. You know, we can all come in and work. We're all comfortable with each other. And I want people to know that. And I think the people that work for us do know that. Yeah. We do events together. Like this year, everyone flew down a couple of weeks ago. We did a golf tournament. All the proceeds went back to the Children's Aid Society. So we really try to do things together as a team and, give back.
Well, you talked about family-type atmosphere. I've got to think that, you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, so I've got to think that sometimes, we've talked about it on previous podcasts, flipping that switch from business owner, business person, entrepreneur to family person, mom, wife, has got to be kind of tough. So how do you maintain that work-life balance? How do you find that in I would think, what is a very stressful situation that you can find yourself in sometimes? Telecom and technology is very fast changing and stressful and all those things. So how do you kind of find your work-life balance in amongst all that?
Well, I do not think I'm perfect at this, and anybody that knows me knows that I never shut off work. But I am learning that whenever I get home, I have to shut it down for a little while. We have a rule in our house when we have dinner. There's no phone, no nothing. We put them in the other room, and that is our time that we sit together as a family. We eat dinner, and we ask about each other's day, and we're really enamored with each other. And so that is a rule in our house. And most people that know me know that. So if they try to call me during that time, I'm not going to answer. But I think work-life balance is hard. And I think it's something that I try to do a little bit better each day. I'm actually married to an entrepreneur. So my husband owned restaurants and bars for a really long time. and he now is doing something different. But living with another entrepreneur and someone who owns a business, you know, you have two people working all the time. When we get home, we kind of just have to shut it off.
Yeah, no doubt. So what have you learned from your husband? He was an entrepreneur, is an entrepreneur. I don't think you ever turned that off. So, I mean, what have you learned from watching him?
You know, it's so amazing. So a couple of years ago, he was selling his business and we were opening another one up in South Florida. And I went to, they were throwing a party for him, and watching all these people stand up and say these things about him. You know, he's a good communicator. He's always there for people. If people decided to leave and go somewhere else, he would help them do that to better themselves and get another opportunity. And it's so amazing to hear these people say these things about him, because those are things that I've learned as well. You know, and he's always there to help. People still call him today like, hey, do you know anybody that's hiring for this? Or he'll share things or introduce people to each other. And he's a connector. Our motto in our house is just always do the next right thing. And if you don't know what that is, just ask. Yeah. And just watching him do that. And I'll call him sometimes and I'm like, hey, should I do this? And we'll talk it out. And so it's a good fit.
Yeah, that's very cool. And everything you're saying gets back to the relationship, right? I mean, and that's the common theme that I'm hearing anyway. You haven't said that particular word, but I mean, it's the theme that's run through everything that you said to me anyway so far. And that's a very, very, in my opinion, very important part to have a successful business, to being a successful leader, to, you know, to having a successful life, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes people think sales, like we're in sales, we're coming to sell them something. But I mean, we won't even take a job if it's not a good fit. We want to make sure that we have the right solution for this customer. And at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. That's what it's about. And building these relationships and cultivating them. And I think that's what this is about, is relationships.
Yeah, no doubt. So what's your best leadership quality, do you think?
Communication.
Okay.
Communication. Anyone that knows me would say that. But I think I can be overly communicate.
Yeah.
I just know how it is when that is not happening. And I don't want to ever set that tone for our organization.
Do you have any advice for somebody who's not the best communicator? I know that it really, a lot of it just starts with just have the conversation, right? But some people just are not comfortable communicating, you know, freely and whatnot. I mean, do you have anything that's worked for you maybe in the past, or that you've coached others on how to be better at that?
Absolutely. I think being able to feel comfortable and confident to be able to go talk to someone. And if you don't feel that, if you don't want to say what you're trying to say, I think putting it in an email, maybe bringing someone else in with you to have the conversation, whatever it is. But I think that just also takes time. Yeah,
that's great. So look, technology changing a lot. So look a year down the road, 2 years down the road, where do you want the company to be in 2 years? What's your vision?
Yeah. So I came on board in May of this year, and we have already grown astronomically. I mean, I think in just a few short months, we have closed over 40 plus deals in a very short amount of time. And it's because of relationships. But I mean, gosh, a year from now, I would love to have more people join our team, more salespeople. I think that would be my goal, is just to continue to grow and bring more people onto our team.
How big's the team right now?
Total together, there's over 20 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking for somebody to come alongside you and work with you, for you, what do you look for? What are some characteristics?
Well, for OberaConnect, somebody who's a go-getter, has tenacity, who's willing to learn, who's willing to work, and just wants to come and be part of a good team.
Yeah, that's great. So, all right, getting ready to wrap up here. I got a couple more questions for you. What is the one piece of advice that you would give someone looking to either their goal is to own their own business, or if their goal is just to maybe get into your field? What's something that you can give as far as advice to someone looking to step out there and do kind of what you're doing?
Find a mentor, find somebody that can help you grow and learn. I read a lot. Technology changes every single day. So I read a lot of articles. I call a lot of people. I ask a lot of questions. I think just find someone. And there's a lot of companies out there that have internships. Right. Do an internship for a company and see if that's a right fit, if you want to get into that field. I had somebody actually call me a couple weeks ago that was like, hey, my son really wants to do this, but we're not too sure. And I was like, well, I know this company is hiring interns. And so I put them together. So I think just finding what works best for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't know if that's really anything that anybody has mentioned before, but internships, if they're paid, that's great. But I mean, I would imagine that you could just about go anywhere if you could afford to even do something in a not paid position in a field that you're interested in. I would think that there would be plenty of people out there that would be willing to let you come in and see what goes on and how it operates and get that experience. So that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, when I got into this field, started working at a technology company as just a 1099 contracted employee. And so I didn't even know where that was going to go. And then it just evolved into my career.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. All right, one last question. This is kind of a fun one. And I'm going to ask this because you're a technology person, but if I made you give up one piece of technology for the rest of your life and you couldn't, no access, whatever, and I'm talking either cell phone or radio, TV, Netflix, whatever it is, tablet, computer, what could you give up for the rest of your life that you would not be able to, if you couldn't have access to it? What would you give up?
That's a hard question. It'd probably be TV.
Okay. Nobody's ever said cell phone that I've asked that question to.
This is how I live. I can't pay my bills without one of these.
Yeah, TV is good. All right.
Yeah.
Right, Devon, thanks. This has been great. We'll link all your websites and social media in the show notes, but if anyone has any questions about what you guys do, I'm sure they can contact you. You'll be glad to talk to them. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Avizo Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avizogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.